now, listen up.
3, 2, 1.
It's showtime.
That's great.
This is ridiculous.
99.3 The Truth.
You can't handle the truth. Right now.
Ooh.
That's the stupidest thing I ever heard.
Let's do it. Hit it.
It's time for Mac's World.
And here we go.
Everybody, let's get it started. Let's get it started.
Call Mac 244-0077 or text 809-0993.
It's showtime, everybody! Showtime!
Exclusively on 99.3 The Truth.
7 minutes after 4 o'clock on the 22nd day of September in the Lord's year 2016. I'm a little fired up today. What would you call my mood today?
I don't know. You seem normal to me, but
Normal, really?
but you're feeling something.
Yeah. Had a great afternoon, and I leave here in about half hour. Thanks for taking the last part of the show.
Yeah.
And Picasso and I are going down to the Wild at Heart boot camp down at Lake Aquabi. Is that right?
Aquabi, yep, Indianola.
Yeah. That's going to be a good time.
Me and 179 other guys. Wow. And I know this is going to sound really funny, but I'm just going to say it. I'm 57 years old, and I have never been to a men's retreat. Not church, not recovery. And the last time I did something like this was literally probably, I don't know, college? Maybe? No, probably before that. I just don't do stuff like this. I don't remember the last time I spent 3 days away from my home. I know it hasn't been in 12 years because I only spent 4 days away from my home in those 12 years. 2 were in Nashville when we were down there together, and then 2 is when I visited my parents. So the fact that I'm excited about it tells me Jesus is in the middle of it.
Oh, I think it's going to be great. I'm really looking for. You're going to come back and do the show on Monday.
Yep.
Man, I'm really looking forward to just. I mean.
Yep.
What you think his hair will be purple, Bob?
No. We're not doing anything. We're not goofing around like that.
Oh.
He'll just be sleep deprived, that's all.
Yeah, you'll probably be just wore out.
Well, that'd be a good thing, though. But anyway, let me just say this real quick, and then I'm going to have LaTonja come on live from Charlotte, or from Charlotte, right? Charlotte.
Yep.
Yeah. I want to give you a minute of personal testimony. God gives us something called makarios. And that is the Hebrew word for God's never-ending, unstoppable joy. And today I have that. In fact, I usually have that, but I've been having a tough time the last few months. But I got it today. And that's a feeling that the phone can ring and tell you any bad piece of news you want. Your dog can go poo on somebody's floor and you just clean it up and it's okay. Have you checked your office lately, Chris? Anyway. And that's what I have today. And I want you to know that that's available to you. And no other person can cause it or take it away. No great sermon can set it in your heart. And you certainly can't buy it because you don't deserve it. And you couldn't afford it if you could. It's a gift from God. I don't know how I got it. It's the Holy Spirit saying, Mac, you and I, Romans 28, you and I, we can overcome anything. We can get past anything we need to do. Just take my hand and let's do this together. And that's how I feel today. And I'm glad I could share that with you. All right, let's go to the phones where LaTonja is standing by. LaTonja, welcome to Mac's World Live on The Truth. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. And for those of you on Webcast One Live, we have a picture of LaTonja up there. Her last name is Worsham. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And she's in the Truth. She's on the Truth Network. And again, she's not a journalist. She's a talk show host like we are. And one of the reasons I wanted LaTonja on the show, or I was glad to have LaTonja on the show, Mike Carbone sent her to me, is because I don't want the facts, ma'am, just the facts. I want the feelings of what's going on in Charlotte, North Carolina right now. All right. First of all, LaTonja, back up a couple days and tell us what happened, please.
Wow, a couple days. Well, let's talk a little bit. I would say, first of all and foremost, thank you for having me, by the way. And
you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. The past couple days, it's been quite, I heard somebody use the word tumultuous or tumultuous or whatever word it's just been very discouraging, let's put it that way. And for me, I would say that not only has it been discouraging, it's been devastating to our city to see some of the things that have actually taken place, which of course was the killing and the murder of Keith Scott by a police officer.
All right, so a police officer got killed, is that right? No, the other way around.
Not a police officer. A police officer, unfortunately, shot a gun and killed Keith Scott, who happened to be a resident here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Keith Scott.
Keith Lamont Scott, yes.
Oh, Lamont Scott, okay.
Mm-hmm. They call him Keith Lamont Scott, based on what I saw in the news.
All right. And was he an African-American? Or is he an African-American?
Yes, he is. Or yes, he was, that is, yeah.
Well, he still is. Because I think when you go to heaven, the black stays with you, right? I mean, we're created in God's own image.
I agree totally, yes.
Yeah, right.
I'm laughing, but I'm serious. So
Yeah.
I hear you loud and clear, absolutely.
I have to ask the next question. Was the police officer white?
Well, that is the question now. There's some discrepancy with that. Based upon the information that I'm hearing now through the news, he was definitely Caucasian.
So the police officer that shot and killed Keith Lamont Scott is Caucasian.
That is correct.
And that is the scenario that is upsetting millions? Yeah, millions of people across the country. Because this seems to be repeated over and over and over and over, that a white police officer ends up killing a black man. Now, what was the situation, LaTonja, that put Mr. Scott and the police officer in the same place at the same time?
Basically, what was happening in that particular area, which is considered the University City area of Charlotte, they were already looking to serve a warrant to someone who had some similar features to Mr. Scott. So in that particular area, when they were looking for someone, they came upon his truck. They basically followed up with him, and things got out of control, apparently. Now, how out of control it got is the real issue that a lot of people are having, because they're like, well, the gentleman was actually just in his car. The witnesses are saying the gentleman was actually just sitting in his car reading a book and waiting on his child at the bus stop, which he does every day. But
so
think something different.
At this time, we don't believe or we know that Mr. Scott was not involved in the event, the situation in which the police were looking for somebody who matched his description.
Well, I think it's interesting you would ask that question, because the real issue that we're dealing with now here in Charlotte is the fact that there was no body camera on the officer that shot him. So the argument now is, well, what actually happened? Was he someone they were serving a warrant to or not, or did they have the wrong person? So the real issue now is, when are we going to see the tapes? According to Chief Kerr Putney, no one is going to see the tapes but the immediate family, and that is the rising issue as to why there is rioting here happening in Charlotte, because they're making a demand to see what really occurred.
All right, so I thought I misheard you before. So there is a police, the guy did have body cam on, the policeman.
No, he did not.
So where's the tape come from?
Exactly. It was on the black officer and the other officers, they said, that approached after the shooting occurred. So apparently somebody saw it, but the actual officer that shot him did not have a body cam on him whatsoever.
All right. So
I know it sounds so crazy. I understand. But I kid you not, one had it on, another one didn't. But they said they do have video footage. They also have video footage from a witness that actually saw the whole thing play out.
All right, so now when you say it wasn't on, you're telling me that the police officer that is accused of killing Keith Lamont Scott had a body cam on, but it wasn't turned on?
No, we're saying he did not have a body camera on, but there were witnesses out there with phone cameras, and they said also there was another officer, the black officer that came after to give the victim CPR, he had a body camera on him. So they have not yet released that information to the public.
All right, so what is the general mood? No, let's go to consensus first. Consensus of the black community in Charlotte right now.
Not good at all. You have various different viewpoints. You got one viewpoint from the faith community. You got another viewpoint from just the residents alone. Then you got a viewpoint from those who just plain old decided that they're going to be violent no matter what happens.
So you recognize, you're sharing with us that you recognize there's some people there that are just going to be violent and take this as an excuse to go to the streets and cause trouble.
Yeah, somebody wouldn't like the fact that I'm saying that, but I must say that is the absolute truth, because we are now making the mistake by calling protesters violent people, and that's not the case. The protesters were peaceful, but yet the rioters are not, and they're looting, they're tearing up the city. It's just been bad. It's really been bad.
Well, we know that in Ferguson, Missouri, LaTonja, that the Black Panthers from Chicago came in, and they were the ones that caused all the rioting. The people of Ferguson and of St. Louis and of Missouri were simply protesting. Do you think you've had an influx of bad people come into Charlotte?
No, because I firmly believe there's already bad people in Charlotte. Not that Charlotte's a bad city, but let's just say they have their own issues. They have their own young people that are gangbangers. You've got young people who just made up their mind that they're not going to do the right thing.
All right, you hang on, LaTonja. I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to go to a break, and we're coming back again live with you. LaTonja Worsham, she is live in Charlotte, and she's part of the truth. That's right, the truth.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza! And it's got Graziano sausage!
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
21 minutes after 4 o'clock on the 22nd day of September in the Lord's year 2016. I'm J. Michael McCoy with you for just a few more minutes. Myself and LaTonja from the Truth Network in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's right, one of our stations. And we're talking about what's going on in Charlotte. Now, we do have a news story, LaTonja, that is now saying they've confirmed that the officer who did the shooting was an African American.
Okay.
You don't think that's true? I love your laugh. But tell me what that means. That's kind of a mischievous laugh.
Well, because we've heard it back and forth all day long. But, yeah, they needed to confirm something, right?
They needed to what?
They needed to confirm something ASAP because the rioting really needs to stop. So, okay, I'll go with what you just told me.
All right. So, what do you think? It's 5:30. It's almost 5:30 there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think's going to happen tonight? Is it going to be a repeat and even worse than last night and the night before?
I doubt it very seriously. We live in a city where I just can't imagine it going on for a third evening. And you know, that was not the plan last night, too. The plan was to have a peaceful protest. And unfortunately, they allowed someone to have another event at 9 o'clock p.m. They started at 6 o'clock, ended at about 8 o'clock, then started up something else at 9. And everybody was saying that was not a good idea, but the city approved it, and that's when things got out of hand. So I cannot imagine that being the case now that we have, you know, the National Guard there and other reinforcements in place.
So have we had the level of violence and looting and rioting in Charlotte that we had in Ferguson a couple of years ago?
Could you repeat that question, please?
Sure. In Ferguson, Missouri, a few years ago, we had a town almost burned down.
Right.
Are you having that level of violence in Charlotte yet?
I would say no.
No, okay.
Yeah, it's not to that extreme. Some people would say, well, you really haven't been down here, but trust me, it was enough information, enough visuals going on around the world, and not only that, from personal testimonies from people. No, it's not at that level. The most you've seen is a trash can on fire and a lot of buildings being destroyed by different individuals that are just looting and running around the street.
And when you say destroyed, you mean wrecked, not burned?
Wrecked, not burned.
Okay. All right. So what do you think? Now, let's walk from Charlotte for a second. I just want your opinion. You're an African-American woman.
I am.
You're a communicator. You've got a radio program on the Truth Network in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Right now, you and I are at like 100 feet looking down on Charlotte, and it's just all really big to us because we're in the middle of it. Let's go up to about 5,000 feet.
Okay.
What do you think the solution of this Black Lives Matter, cops killing African-American men, what is this the new normal, or is there a solution to this problem?
I think that there's an issue from a Christian perspective, as well as being, you know, I'm a Christian that happens to be black. That's how I see myself, to be totally straight with you. So when I look down and I think about all of this, I think about it along the lines of it's really a revelation of things that we have not yet begun to deal with as a church, a faith-based movement. The churches haven't necessarily done their job, and I would say that honestly when it comes down to the African-American church. I don't believe that they've really done a good job in doing some of that. Some would definitely not like the fact that I'm saying this, but this is my personal opinion, that there has not been real dialogue about being transparent as to why we have not come together by way of race. I think there's a lot of dialogue that's been left out that we're not willing to talk about. Therefore, we've covered it up for years, and now here we are. We're back to the drawing board over and over and over again. Also, the issue with black-on-black crime. So, a lot of dialogue that's not taking place, but yet it's unfolding before our very eyes.
Did you think that 8 years ago or 7.5 years ago when Barack Obama won the presidency that we were going to have a new enlightenment into race relations and some of this horrible racism would die out or at least diminish?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I didn't think that just because Obama was put into office. I think a lot of people thought that was the case, but that's a myth altogether. Okay. No?
Yeah.
No. To answer your question, definitely not.
Do you think he's made it better or worse?
I would say that he has provoked us all to think about why we do what we do. He's also provoked us to think about why we voted for him. And also, he's provoked us to think about who we are thinking about bringing into office now.
Are you political?
Somewhat, not very.
Okay. I mean, do you know who you're going to vote for yet? And you don't have to tell me. I'm just curious.
Yes, I do.
And Donald Trump, right? Well, hey, I could only be 50% wrong, right?
You're correct.
So you're a Hillary Clinton fan?
I'm still back and forth, but I would say at this juncture, yes.
Okay. All right, listen, I greatly appreciate the fact that you took some time to be with us today, and thank you very much. You've got my phone number now.
I do.
And if there's anything going on in Charlotte, not necessarily related to these riots, but somewhere down the road, you're our ace reporter from Charlotte now here on The Truth 99.3 in Des Moines.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. I hope I was able to answer your questions for you today.
No, you did great. You really did. I appreciate your candor, LaTonja, and you were wonderful. All right. God loves you. You love me, and we'll love each other. Doesn't matter what the color of the skin is. We all just gather around Jesus and take it from him, right?
That's correct. I agree. I totally agree with you there.
All right, LaTonja. LaTonja Worsham live from Charlotte, North Carolina, where the Truth Network has a radio station, and she's a talk show host, not a journalist, and which she did a great job. You can tell that she's a talk show host and not a journalist. So,
there's a lot.
That was interesting.
It is. It's a difficult. I'm glad that we had someone from Charlotte call in. It'd be great. I wish I could shout loud enough to say, hey, if you're in Charlotte, call us and tell us what's going on. But I don't think our signal reaches there that far. I mean, I guess the internet we do, but on the ground right now, this is really kind of a disturbing thing, and I wonder if, and I didn't get to ask her, but does it matter the color of the officer? I mean, you've got someone who shot another person, and that's just a bad thing, And I think if we can recognize that death is bad, a police officer shooting an unarmed man would be bad. Of course, there's a debate on whether or not he was armed. We had people saying that he had a book. We had people saying that he had a gun. And what really disheartening about the whole thing is Bob, you're a guy that I think of about these things. We don't have all the facts. I mean, clearly no one knows all the details about what's happened, yet we already have riots.
Exactly. And that's why it's important to wait, for them to investigate, interview people, talk to witnesses, look at videos and so forth. There's a whole big process to get the story together. And if you don't do that, you're only guessing. And obviously, and you said, does it matter that a black officer shot a black man? Obviously not.
Yeah.
Because they're still protesting.
Somebody heard you. We have somebody from Charlotte.
What?
On the phone. You may know him, Steve Noble. He fills in every once in a while and does a program across the Truth Network. And also, when you send prayer requests to the Truth Network, it's Steve that answers them.
He is praying for folks right now. That's right.
Steve, are you there?
I'm here. I'm in Raleigh, just north of Charlotte. How are you guys doing? How you doing, Matt?
Good, buddy. How are you?
I'm excellent, thank you.
So, did you hear LaTonja on the air here a little bit ago?
I did not hear her. No, I just got done doing my show, and somebody, Chris Roloff, said, "Hey, Mac's talking about Charlotte right now, so give us a call." So here I am.
All right.
You blew my cover, Steve. You blew my cover. I was trying to pretend like I didn't know.
Give me your 2-minute scenario on what's going on in Charlotte.
Well, I just had a friend on Facebook send a picture up of all these National Guard troops moving their way down to Charlotte. And let me just say this, as somebody that's in Raleigh, North Carolina, and around North Carolina, racism is alive and well, unfortunately. But Charlotte itself has not really been known for that in the most recent years. And I was watching with my wife last night, and I just want to go in a spiritual direction here. I was watching live, because now, Facebook Live's all over the place. So I'm watching Charlotte Fox reporter doing Facebook Live, 22,000 people watching them, right there on the front lines, watching this go down last night with the cops and the crowd was probably 80% black and 20% white. And it was disturbing enough, you guys, to watch the cops, to watch that line moving, to watch the crowd, to hear the anger, to hear the language, to hear some of the unbelievable things they were saying to the cops. But one thing that was even worse and really grieved me as a follower of Christ was to watch the comments on Facebook Live. You had one white guy, because you can see their pictures, one white guy said, "Shoot them all, let God sort them out."
Oh, no. Seriously?
A black person saying, all the cops are evil, back and forth. And it just grieved my heart, because we talk about sin, we talk about skin color, we talk about racism, we talk about police brutality, and we talk about Blue Lives Matter and all that stuff. Beneath all of it is sin. Beneath all of it is the lack of Christ in individuals' lives. So they see color, and they see negative, and they see division. And unity of the church. There was a black pastor I just watched from Charlotte, and they had him on the local news this morning. And he got right to the gospel. He goes, you know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing a problem with people who do not know how to love because they don't know the one that created them. And that's the thing. I would challenge all of your listeners up there in Iowa, Cross Truth Radio, down in North Carolina, that we have to remember that ultimately what's behind all of this is a spiritual problem. And in the church, we need to be loving our neighbors as ourselves, whether they're black, white, yellow, or whatever. We need to go out of our way to have relationships with people that don't look like us so that we can begin to model for this country. Christ modeled.
Well, Steve.
Jew, all that stuff.
Nuts.
He's digging through his Bible, Steve. Give him a minute.
I'm sorry. I just.
He doesn't know how to use the Bible app. He's got a real big, fat, thick Bible here.
That's true. I do. I still use a paper Bible. I'm old school.
Good for you. You're closer to God.
Well, what I was going to try, I had it right here, but I lost it. But it was Ephesians 6, where it says, and you probably know a quote better than I do, but it says, we are not being attacked by flesh. Or governments or principalities. We are being attacked by the accuser, and he's trying to take us out. I believe it's right at the front of Ephesians 6, Chris.
For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over the present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. So you're talking about, Mac, that this is spiritual. This is a spiritual warfare that we've got going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Steve said it perfectly. It is not a black man or a white man or a white woman or a black woman or a aura. It's the accuser messing with God. And we know what the ending is. The ending is the accuser goes into the lake of fire, and that's it. Jesus returns. The old earth is replaced by the original creation, what we were supposed to be living in. And then we'll be with him. Steve, I'm going to ask you to hold on. Chris Roloff is going to take the reins, and he wants to talk to you a little bit more. Steve Noble in today from, where did he say, Mount Pilot?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Raleigh, North Carolina.
I knew Opie was there somewhere. All right, we're coming back live here in Mac's World on The Truth. Did you hear me? This is The Truth.
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed right or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money-back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Good afternoon. It is 4:38. I don't even know what day it is. It's been one of those days. But we've got Steve Noble on the phone with us. He's calling in from Raleigh, North Carolina, because we're trying to get our heads wrapped around the chaos that is going on in the country that started over the weekend. That started earlier this week. We've had riots in Charlotte, and here we are in Iowa. And there's racial stuff here. There's racial tensions in Iowa. Racism is not non-existent in Iowa. But Steve, you mentioned in the last segment that racism is very alive and well in North Carolina.
Oh, absolutely. Well, occasionally I experience it, on my own radio program. After some of the things that happened recently, after Ferguson and a couple others of these incidents, I will, and this is a little nutty for people to hear that don't know me and have never listened to the show, I'll do shows and I'll say, okay, if you're a white caller, you're not getting through today. All I want is African Americans to call in. I'm not going to debate you. I'm not going to argue with you. I just want you to share with us how you're feeling. How are you looking at all of this? So, and the reason I do that, and I've done that with some transsexual guests that I've had, is just to begin to hopefully tenderize our hearts, where I don't have to agree with everything, but I need to at least be sensitive to a plight of somebody whose skin is much darker than mine, and I don't know what it's like. I've never been down that road. I don't understand. And then to start to have conversations are really difficult. How to do a really difficult dance with somebody that you've never danced with. You're going to step on each other's feet. But if you're both believers, then I would encourage you guys to have some people that not see this issue the same as some of us. And grace, God's grace will cover that as you step on each other's toes. But I'm telling you, the gospel comes shining through that every single time, and it starts to tenderize people's hearts. And you see it on social media, like I said last night when we were watching Facebook Live, right there from the front line in Charlotte, the things that people were saying to one another was just heartbreaking. And it's not really for us as followers of Christ. Really, we really got to be careful. Slow to anger, slow to speak, and quick to listen.
Steve Noble's our guest. Steve, now you mentioned that you've had African American folks call into your show right there in North Carolina talking about this issue. What's their prevailing voice? What are they saying? What are the Christians, African American Christians in North Carolina, saying to you right now?
Well, many of them have been it depends on their walk with the Lord, really. I had one gentleman who called in right after Ferguson, and he was obviously ticked off when he called, and he said, every white cop in America is dangerous. Every white cop in America is racist.
Wow.
And I just said, no, sir, I'm not going to argue with you, but do you really believe that every single white cop in America is a racist? And I do. That was the depth of his anger and his frustration. Most of the folks that have called in have actually been thoughtful and balanced in sharing. Yeah, you know what? I don't expect you, Steve, to be able to understand my reaction as I watch this. But there's so much history. Listen, none of us deny our own history. We shouldn't deny anybody else their own history. Right. I just think as followers of Christ, and especially for me as a white man, I need to be really careful as I walk down this road to point out truth. But John chapter 1, verse 14, Jesus full of both grace and truth. Oftentimes we pound our fist on the truth, but we don't get the grace part right, and then we trash our witness once again, and that doesn't help.
Steve, this is 99.3 FM, The Truth. Steve, I've often quoted Martin Luther King Jr. on this program since it seems like the Black Lives Matter movement has just erupted over the last several months, over the last several years, just as it continues to erupt. And Martin Luther said that riot is the language of the unheard. And does that resonate with you? Do you feel like that's just what's going on, is that you have African-American people in North Carolina, around the country, who just feel like their plight, their struggle is not being heard, and they're acting out in this way?
Well, I'm very quick to paint with a broad brush, and certainly I understand where Dr. King was coming from, and I'm sure that applies to a large percentage of the people that are involved down in Charlotte. But when you watch that, I'm just as confident that some significant portion, although let's hope it's a minority, some significant portion, they're just so gone in their sin, they're so depraved at this point, that it just becomes an opportunity to act out on all the brokenness and the rage that's within them. Now it's a convenient excuse for some of them, I would imagine, and that's just as, hey, let's go do some damage, let's go break some stuff. I listened to another guy, they caught a guy, just looked like a well-educated black gentleman in his car, and he said, yeah, the next thing we're going to do, and he was a Charlotte guy, is we're going to move this to the richest parts of Charlotte, and we're going to take it to the people who have all the money, who don't care about the rest of us that don't. So we're going to take this to the richer parts of Charlotte.
Wow.
You're watching this video. He said it right into the camera. He wasn't hiding anything. And I watched that one earlier today before I went on the air. And once again, I'm faced with this brokenness, this depravity of man that I don't know whether he understands just how bombastic that kind of a statement is and how threatening it is, but that somebody could get to that point where they see that as logical and even justified. Again, to see the depths of the depravity and the evil that exists. And like you said earlier, I guarantee you there's one person having a heyday with all of that, and it's Satan himself. And you know, you have to stand for the rule of law. There are people down there, call them thugs, call them whatever you want to, but there are people there that are doing it on purpose. They're taking advantage of it. But there are other people, back to your Dr. King quote, who are rioting because they feel like their voice isn't heard. And aren't there a lot of people in America today that feel the same way?
I think so, and not to relate this to Donald Trump at all, but I think a lot of people that are supporting Donald Trump in the non-minority groups are feeling some sense of that, as odd and small as that may seem, but they feel like their voice isn't heard as well. But what I hear you say, Steve Noble is our guest here on 99.3 FM, The Truth. This is Mac's World Live. I'm Chris Roloff. Mac has popped out for the rest of the broadcast. He is on his way, the Wild at Heart Boot Camp this weekend. So if you're listening and you're going down that way too, give him a big hug from all of us here at the studio. I hope he has a great weekend. Looking forward to hearing back from him on Monday of what God did over the weekend down there at the boot camp. But Steve Noble is our guest. He's a radio broadcaster. Call to Action is his radio program heard on Truth Network station in Raleigh. And Steve, what I heard you say was that this has moved beyond just people who feel like they're not being heard, and this has moved into people who are just looking for a good excuse to let the evil, the wickedness, the violence that's in them out. That's what I feel like I heard you say. And in the break, our producer, Jeb, came in, showed me on his phone a video on Facebook that was incredibly disturbing. It was probably 8 or 9 African-American young guys that would jumped a white guy in a parking garage and were just beating him to death. Not to death, but they were beating him up and laughing and just thought it was really hilarious that they're just beating up this white guy for apparently no reason other than just rage. And that's what you're saying you're seeing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, Solomon was right. There's nothing new under the sun. And new news is just old news happening to new people. So that exists everywhere. Whether it's Ferguson in Baltimore, St. Louis, wherever you want to go, there's always going to be a significant some portion of that crowd that it's just an opportunity to kind of let it loose. And they jump on the bandwagon. There's a portion of the crowd that's there who are not wanting it to be violent. You usually see some black pastors, some other folks there, African American folks that are trying to stop the violence. So you get this whole mixed bag. That's welcome to the age of confusion in the divided states of America. And so when you look at that crowd, not everybody there is for the same reason. But yeah, I watched that video too. Incredibly disturbing. And the guy was on his knees before they beat him up, begging them to leave him alone. That's just an innocent bystander. What did he do wrong? He was in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong color skin. And what is that racism? It's sin, it's brokenness, it's people that are most likely out of a relationship with their maker through Christ Jesus. And so that's what you get. And listen, this is an interesting thing. I had a black lady back to the most recent time when I only let black callers through. She was in her mid-70s. And she goes, if people thought racism was dead just because we elected a guy with darker skin, they were wrong. It was lying dormant. And then the fact that we get Obama, and everybody assumes, oh, this is a great leap forward. But it just exposed a deeper fault line that we were hoping was gone, but obviously isn't.
Steve Noble is our guest. You're listening to Max World Live. It is 99.3 FM, The Truth. Stick with us. Steve, can you hang out? He'll be sticking with us.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
10 minutes before the top of the hour in Salem Radio Network News. When we hit 5 o'clock, you're going to hear updated news and events going on. around the country from Salem Radio Network News. This is 99.3 FM The Truth. You're listening to Max World Live. I'm Chris Roloff, and I'm going to get us through the rest of the broadcast. Bob is here. Bob Mozzarella, the Cat in the Hat, watching the chat, is here, so you can still send us texts here in the last 8 minutes of the broadcast with your comments at 515-809-0993. You can still call us if you want to at 515-244-0077. Here's what we're talking about. We got 8 minutes left. Steve Noble, broadcaster from Raleigh, North Carolina, has called in to give us some of his thoughts and opinions about what's going on right now in North Carolina, what's going on in Charlotte, why the riots, why the violence. We're talking with Steve Noble about that because as Christians, we have to start to try to get our minds around this. Mac asked our guest earlier in the broadcast, is there a solution to this problem? Is there a solution to racism? Is there a solution to the riots? Is there a solution to police officers shooting African American people? The feeling a lot of times is that they're unarmed, that this is violence, that there's corruption in the police force, these kinds of things. Are there solutions to any of these issues? So that's what we're talking about today. And Steve Noble is not afraid to give his opinion, and quite entertainingly so, I might add. And so we love hearing from Steve, and I was able to send him a text and pull him in on the last half of the show here. And Steve, we've got about 7 minutes left, and I want to ask you that question. Steve, is there a solution moving forward to any of these problems?
Well, yes, I believe there is. It's such a multi-pronged environment that we're operating in here. And one of the things I've been blessed, Chris, over the last few years with the show, at the very least, 25% of my callers are African American, and on some days when I'm not specifically blocking out the white people from calling in, I'll have 50% of my callers will be black. And God's just done a wonderful thing in our audience, and you know, I'm on in a bunch of different states, but in North Carolina specifically, because I've had black pastors on, I've had some young black guys. My studio is on the campus of Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary, which is one of the 6 Southern Baptist seminaries. But they brought some young, really sharp black guys on there to help increase the diversity of the campus. And when they come on and we have these open, honest, and very uncomfortable shows together, you know, I tell them what I'm thinking from a white guy's perspective, and we talk about saggy pants and all the other stuff. And I had another black pastor on with one of these young guys, a older gentleman. He's in his 50s. He's on my show regularly. He's a bishop in the Church of God in Christ. And the one young black guy, this is just showing you the confusion inside even the African-American community and the differing opinions there. And I'm going to answer your question in just a second. But he talked about Black Lives Matter. And the older bishop said, well, when are you going to start talking about the 993 black babies that die every day and abortion? When do those lives matter? And the younger black guy hadn't really gone down that road before. So all of a sudden, they have to have a conversation about it. So back to your question. Is there a solution? Well, ultimately, there's the big solution for every human heart, every family, every community, every society, every nation. That's the gospel itself. That's the only thing that changes the human heart so that you can begin to see clearly and to watch your own actions and attitudes and words is the gospel, first and foremost. In the black community, from my experience, man, we really need strong black men of God to fill that void. 72% of black kids in the country now growing up without a father in the home. We have a drought of strong, godly black leadership. They're out there. It's just not enough of them. For speaking as a white Christian, I need to go out of my way to develop relationships with my black brothers and sisters, even the ones that I don't agree with, so that we can practice loving one another and do that for others. We need to support our police while at the same time supporting the reality that some of our police probably aren't the greatest people and need to be dealt with. So it's this multi-prong. I think the thing we need the most, Chris, is just some calm, some thoughtfulness, going back to the Bible, being slow to anger, slow to speak, and quick to listen. I think as Christians, we need to be really careful with our social media footprint and what we're saying, and we need to be bringing salt and light into the world and not making it worse. But we need to support our police, but we need to support the justice system. Like not shooting first and asking questions second. We need to let the system work and try to be calm and listen. I think that's something that we need to do much better is listen to one another, especially for me as a white guy, to listen to my black neighbors, to not tell them, hey, that happened 300 years ago. I didn't own slaves. That doesn't do any good. You need to, sometimes the most Christ-like thing we can do, Chris, is shut up and listen.
I agree with you 100%. And Steve Noble is our guest. Steve, you and I share a common passion, of course, the Lord Jesus Christ. We also know that as we look at these things, we think what we need is revival. And we're going to have guests later next week talking about a prayer event that's coming up here in Des Moines in October. We're really excited about promoting, so that'll be next week. We're going to give you some details on that. We know that we want revival here in the United States, but I have to ask you this because I've also been pondering this. Next year, Steve, I'm a Reformed guy. I'm a Presbyterian. Next year is the 500-year anniversary of the Reformation.
Yep.
And the Reformation was a revival that was different than, say, the revival here in the 1850s, right? It was a revival not necessarily on mass conversion, but a revival of turning to the Scriptures and one, I would say, of discipleship. One of people growing in their faith, growing in their knowledge of God's Word. Do you think we need that kind of revival too?
Well, we've got two different things going on here. We've got revival and we've got awakening. Revival is inside the body of Christ. Awakening is inside the lost community.
Gotcha.
Do we need revival in the church? Absolutely. Of course, 60% of so-called pastors in America don't even have a biblical worldview. And most Christians are a mile wide and an inch deep. So we need revival in the church because we watch these things, and you look at Facebook Live or whatever you're reading and watching, the question becomes, how broken is our heart over any of this? How broken is my heart over a black brother or sister that I can't understand their plight, but I see some rage, I see some brokenness there? How broken am I over about anything? Jesus looks out at the masses and he weeps. I look out at the masses, I used to, and he say, to hell with them, bunch of liberals. Well, I need revival in my heart so that I care about my neighbor and I'm willing to reach out and love them where they're at. We need awakening in the culture because the only ultimate answer is the gospel of Jesus Christ, which changes a heart, which then changes a mind, which changes a life.
Steve, I thank you so much. I could not have said it better, and that's why I'm so glad that you called in and said it just the way that you did, brother.
The body of Christ, my friend.
That's right. You're gifted in that area, and I want to say that one of the unique things, and we talk about this, Steve. You and I are in radio. We're in broadcasting. We get to share that all over through radio, through the internet. And we get to get the truth out to people. And I just want to extend a big thank you to you, but also a big thank you to each and every one of our listeners who take this radio station, a radio station unlike any other station in Des Moines, that preaches the gospel of Jesus Christ, that our only hope is in Jesus Christ and Him alone, that preaches that and gets it throughout central Iowa. And it's you, the listener, that makes it possible for us to get that to the next person. We've had so many people get new bumper stickers and put them on their cars and share them with people. That's making a real difference. That's making a real impact. I thank you so much for supporting us in that way and sharing 99.3 with Central Iowa, because we can talk about politics, we can talk about Trump, we can have the Never Trumpers in here, we can talk about Black Lives Matter, we can talk about Blue Lives Matter, which we do. We get into all the nitty-gritty controversial issues, but at the end of the day, just like Steve Noble said, and I'm saying to you, the only thing that matters is that you have turned from your sin towards the only one that can save you, and that is the Lord Jesus Christ and Him alone. Turn to Jesus Christ today. Thanks for listening to 99.3 FM, The Truth.